This conference will now be recorded.
Hello everyone, I'm Lars Polgren from Nobina Technology, and I will tell you more about our experience from autonomous shuttles and how to use them from a business perspective. And hopefully I'm able to answer some questions from you also. First, just a short presentation of Nobina and Nobina Technology. Nobina is one of the largest bus operators in the Nordic region. We transport around 1 million people every day with buses. And Nobina Technology is the small innovation hub within the Nobina group. And to make it simple, our focus is to simplify everyday travel and develop new technology. But what does that mean? One thing we have done is the electrical buses that we have launched and technology related to that. And other examples are Travis, our digital travel assistant that can help you with multi-modular traveling. So you are able to book and pay for your whole trip in the same app. And also autonomous buses, what I will focus on right now. We started our first autonomous project in Kista in the beginning of 2018, and I'm pretty sure that that was the very first time we had autonomous buses on public roads. And after that, we had similar projects like that in Norway and Copenhagen and other cities in Sweden. After that experience, we were ready to take it to the next level, to our core business, to run for public transportation. And I will not talk so much about that. I will instead show you a short video. And after that, just discuss it from a business perspective and some numbers.
Det började egentligen med att Järfälla kommun bestämde sig för att vi ville bygga den moderna, attraktiva och hållbara staden här ute i Barkarby. Och det innebär då också att bygga en stad där hållbara transporter är prioriterade. Den största utmaningen är ju egentligen att tunnelbanan kommer ju inte vara klar på ett antal år och vi behöver hitta lösningar för att utveckla kollektivtrafiken i den takt som människor faktiskt flyttar in.
Barkarby-modellen är en unik form av samverkan mellan SL, vår operatör Nobina och Järfälla kommun. Barkarby-modellen innebär en helt ny typ av samverkan där vi för samman frågor som rör stadsutveckling, infrastruktur, kollektivtrafik och ny teknik till en helhet. Jag inte bara hoppas utan är övertygad om att Barkarby-modellen blir en modell för hur vi gemensamt bygger morgondagens stad. Där vi ser till att göra rätt från början, vi samverkar och förstår att alla måste bidra för att alla ska kunna vinna.
Tillsammans bidrar vi med olika kompetenser och lösningar, där vi på Nobina har kunnat knyta samman kommunen och regionen med vår unika kunskap om teknik och kollektivtrafik. Sedan oktober 2018 rullar världens första självkörande bussar i reguljär linjetrafik i Barkarbystaden. 2020 inviger vi Sveriges första riktiga BRT. Linjen kommer att vara helt elektrifierad och halvera restiden mellan Barkarbystaden och tunnelbanan i Akalla. Bussen får högsta prioritet med en dedikerad infrastruktur, hög turtäthet och smidig ombordstigning. I takt med att regelverken utvecklas och tekniken förbättras så kommer de autonoma minibussarna att kunna komma till dig istället för att du går till hållplatsen. Och 2025 kommer tunnelbanan öppna i Barkarbystaden. I samarbete med SL har Nobina även skapat den smarta reseplaneraren Travis som samlar alla resor oavsett trafikslag i en och samma app. Tekniken är egentligen bara ett verktyg för Barkarbystaden. Det unika är samarbetet. Vi alla har bidragit från början och tillsammans bygger vi nu en smart stad på riktigt.
I hope you all were able to see the video without too much lagging, and that you got a good understanding for the project. If we look at it more detailed, this graph is not so exciting, but it shows the number of passengers every day. And in total, during these almost past 2 years, we have had around 30,000 passengers. And that is, of course, quite a lot. It's around 100 persons every day. And if you compare this with a regular conventional full-size bus, it's about 1,000 in minimum to 5,000 persons every day. And the capacity in a full-size bus is 50, and here it's around 10 persons. And also to be mentioned is that the price is almost the same. So to be able to run this from a business perspective, it's important that you give the customer something extra that they need and really fulfills their needs for travel. And I will say that this will never replace the conventional buses. It will be like an extension instead, which makes the public transportation even better. And if you, instead of comparing it with a full-size bus, compare it with a local service bus, where the number of passengers every day is around 100 to 200, something like that, that is more comparable. And with this increased level of service that we can give and reduce costs, that we don't need a driver on board, and that we also have the on-demand solution without fixed routes, so we only travel where people want to travel and when they want to travel. In that way, we are able to reduce the cost. And I think this brings good opportunities for a sustainable business case. But to reach there, we have a tech roadmap that we must follow to fulfill the passengers' need. And one major thing is that we can offer an on-demand solution, and also that the grade of autonomy is much higher than it is today, so we don't need an operator on board, that the bus can drive and act by itself. And I think this will be helped by vehicle-to-infrastructure solutions that we build up. And also that the technology in the new vehicles always develops and gives greater capacity for the vehicle to act by itself. And then maybe in the longer term, we will see full-size autonomous buses, but I think they should not be mixed up with these shuttles that we use for the first and last mile solution. That was all from me, and I'm glad to answer your questions later or now. Thank you.
I have a very quick question to you. How do you see the availability of the services? If some municipality wants to buy like a 5 shuttle buses right now, is there offering on the market at the moment?
We are in the discussion with the PTA how to change the fleet for the upcoming year. And what I say, I think we will have almost the same number of vehicles operating, but more hours during the day. And this will also be easier when you don't have a scheduled driver that needs to be in every bus. And I would say that already in the about 1 year away, we will have the first one without an operator on board.
Okay, thank you. We will have a longer discussion session in the end of this part 1. Next, we move on to legal issues. Matthias Hartwig from IKEM is going to teach us to that topic, please.
Yeah, hello to everybody. I am Matthias Hartwig from IKEM. That's the Institute of Climate Protection, Energy and Mobility in Berlin. And I will give you a presentation on legal obstacles on the way to a sound use case for driverless transport. At IKEM, I am leading the mobility team, and the mobility team is doing research on regulatory and economic questions of automated and connected driving, and on decarbonization and digitalization of traffic. If you want to know more about us, please don't hesitate to visit our website down here, ikem.de. So I'm gonna start with 3 tips from a legal perspective, because I guess some of you are planning perhaps some projects on autonomous vehicles in the future. Okay, yeah, I was here. So I start with 3 tips from the legal perspective. The first tip from my side, it seems obvious, but is very important. It's get approved. You need to plan enough time and resources for the approval and permission the processes of the vehicle, of the infrastructure, if you want to use any, and for any transportation permits. And I guess still, even there have been a lot of projects, that will be one of the focuses of your project, and it's always underestimated in the project planning phase. The regulation for driverless driving is not ready yet. You have to consider this always, and the administration has very few experiences normally, especially if it's the first pilot in your city. But even if there are new pilots, legislation is changing, so you need to get them involved, learn with them together, and get through the whole process with them step by step. Second tip would be keep informed on legal issues and on the administrative framework. One question is, will the legislative framework and the administration and now allow the project you are planning? For example, when you want to drive without a steward or without an operator in a control center, that might be impossible still, and their legal systems are still getting prepared for this. You need to keep that in view and really need to find out what you can do. And the second big question is, will the legislation or the administrative framework change during the project term? National legislators are starting to address several of the issues of driverless driving, but regulating driverless driving will be a difficult and very long-taking task. So you need to evaluate whether decisive changes will take place during your project term. And the third tip would be help shaping the regulation. Since the legislative and administrative framework is not adjusted to driverless driving yet, your project can help policymakers to learn about important changes to be made in the legal framework. And for driverless public transport, from IKEM, we are in the moment consulting policymakers on the necessary changes in administration and legislation. And I guess you always should have somebody on board, find somebody who can take this role for your project, for your country, because this process will be ongoing for a long time, and they need to learn from the experiences from your pilot. We are involved in projects about driverless driving for public transport because we see the big benefits possible with this new technology. One of the main advantages in driverless driving might be that it's a game changer in the pursuit of a comfortable, affordable, accessible, sustainable, and non-discriminatory public transportation for all. But we can't close our eyes that there might be downsides of autonomous driving, and that our vision doesn't necessarily come reality. This promise will not be realized on its own. Without proper regulation and implementation, driverless driving could lead to the cannibalization of public transportation, limited accessibility, less inclusion, and more individual motor traffic, with several downsides on sustainability. So on these legal issues and administrative issues, you need to have your eye too, and encourage the lawmaker that he keeps especially a focus on public transport, which from my perspective is very possible, but not the way we will take without a little bit helping from the legislation. I pointed some points out on regulatory goals, on safety, performance, zero emission, and a better mobility for all. We need an international, European, and national legal framework for an integrated system of public transport for people and freight, for safe, smooth, and efficient implementation for vehicles and infrastructure on public roads. Some of the most urgent tasks of these legislations are rethinking public transport law due to the flexibility available now through automated vehicles, and rethink the information and the digital background system and the legislation on this side too. Then we need to have an integrated planning for public mobility that brings together all the new possibilities and combines them with public transport legislation so far in your country. So the regulation needs to develop an integrated system for all means of automated transport. One main focus should be safety of passengers, road users, and traffic flow. And the law must be adapted to machines, but on the other hand be safe and predictable for humans, because it will always be a mixed traffic for a long time. There won't be only autonomous vehicles on the street. They have to arrange with people, but we have to keep in mind there are machines. They secure security in another way. So that will be a big legal task, and that will need a long time for thinking. The legislator in your country has to get very soon to make thoughts on all these aspects. And the pilots on driverless public transport can help to promote this vision and support the policy maker with insight and experience. Having talked about the strategic goals of regulation, the main legal challenge for your pilot in the moment is to bring your vehicle on the public road under the regulatory framework focused on a human driver. The legislator, at least in Germany, and as I see in the most European countries, has not yet realized that there's a big difference between the skills of a human being and a machine. And so humans have big advantages over machines, especially in perception and situation analysis. They have intelligence, and all talking about artificial intelligence a little bit obscures that machines so far will never be intelligent, and humans have just superior image recognition and the ability to analyze situations very quickly based on the intuition, and they can to provide ethic evaluations of situations very quick, and so decide what to do. And in their reaction, they are very flexible and can be held personally responsible for their decisions. On the other hand, machines don't have all these advantages, but they have other advantages. So, for example, they have almost unlimited information processing capacities and multitasking capacities. Their potential for access to information especially we are car to infrastructure, car to car techniques, and we really should use this advantages of the machine to little bit overcome the disadvantages they have in comparison with humans. And that will need a lot of changes in legislation and real rethinking of the legislation, and a lot of work on the side of the legislator. In reaction, they can be very quick. They have a big superiority in reliability. They have program fidelity that a human being can never have. They just do what you tell them to do, and then have an almost instantaneous reaction to any situations that are perceived in the right way, and a permanent alertness. That leads to big shifts in legislation, especially regulation loses its addressee in the vehicle and must turn to other addressees outside the vehicle, like the operator, the producer of the car, the public transport operator, and so on. And the important thing is that machines can simulate the driver and must have an own security concept that you have to speak through with your legislator and the administration. And the roads of the rules will change entirely. For a human being, they are executed ex post in a court of law if you have made a mistake as a driver. With an autonomous vehicle, you have to meet the standards right from the beginning. So you will need a lot of development on this issue, that you just need to follow the rules whatever happens. That's the approach in the moment of the legislation, and that will be very difficult. For the vehicle application in your pilot.
Matthias,
yeah,
please.
Okay. Okay. For the vehicle application in your pilot, you need a waiver, meaning a special permit to run the vehicle on the current legislation. And driverless vehicles can, in the moment, not comply with the state-of-the-art technology. So you need to find a way to go through this waiver process with the administration and find an alternative solution to keep the security anyhow. And during the project, this needs a lot of integrated work of the developers, the experts around, and the traffic authorities during all the time to find this approval process, and let the administration and the legislation learn from all this. So that's from me so far. Thanks a lot.
My name is Magdalena Szymańska. I work for the municipality of Gdansk, and let me share my screen to better introduce myself and also our background in Gdansk. In the meanwhile, I will just say that we learned about the project thanks to which we had a chance to pilot an autonomous bus whilst looking for interesting project opportunities. And basically, we learned about the Sohjoa Baltic project because the project leader was looking for partners from our part of Europe. We gladly expressed interest in this innovative project because I work in a municipality for a unit that deals with sustainable mobility. However, until Sohjoa Baltic, we were mostly dealing with e-mobility, with active modes of mobility such as cycling or walking, and also on multimodal solutions. However, we have had no knowledge nor experience of autonomous public transport, and I believe we weren't an exception in Poland because prior to Gdansk, no local government in Poland, no city has ever had an autonomous bus pilot. Just to give you a bit of a background about our city. We are quite a large city, almost 470,000 residents. We cover quite a large area, and suburbanization of our city is one of the problems that causes maybe undesirable trends in modal split. We have a significant number of public transport passengers, over 170 million per year, and quite a large number of tourists visiting us. It all generates traffic. And even though we have been investing in cycling and walking infrastructure, and also in promotion of of active modes of transport, there is still a large pressure from private motor vehicles, and we believe that improving the attractiveness of public transport could help us shift some of the passengers and drivers from cars to public transport. And also, active mobility is maybe not for everyone, not for persons with mobility experiments. So last mile autonomous transport seems to be response to these issues. I'm talking about perspective of Gdansk. However, we are one of the three locations where small-scale pilots were planned within the lifetime of Sohjoa Baltic project. There is also a Zemgale region in Latvia, and there was also Vejle in Denmark. However, now it turns out that Vejle pilot won't happen within this project due to different, mostly legal restrictions. We are keeping our fingers crossed that there is a pilot in Zemgale starting soon, and the Gdansk pilot concluded in October last year. These three small-scale pilot locations, I think it's fair to say we're learning from more experienced project partners that have already had experience of piloting of autonomous buses, and therefore within Sohjoa Baltic project they are starting on a different level and organizing large-scale pilots in Kongsberg, Tallinn and Helsinki, and two of them I believe already started and concluded, and one of them will in Tallinn is kind of recontinued after winter break. Going back to Gdansk pilot, this is one of the pictures from the pilot route, and the first tip I would like to give you is to start planning and preparing as soon as possible. As a first timer in autonomous mobility in Gdansk, we needed about 2 years to, once we knew there are external funds from the Interreg Baltic Sea Region secured, to actually plan and implement a pilot. As soon as possible, we set up a local steering committee consisting of representatives of the municipality, also city company responsible for hiring drivers and sourcing the fleet for public transport managing authority, and roads managing authority. And to this group that is kind of like city budgetary units, we also invited representatives of Gdansk University of Technology, different associations that are active in the field of public transport promotion, etc. So that we had like a wide group of experts that could help us to choose the optimal route, and also that would create like cross-marketing communication to promote this concept in Gdansk and beyond. Our pilot lasted from September till 4th of October, and it was the first autonomous bus line in Poland, and this is how we actually promoted it. We had an operator on board because, well, this is the first experience of an autonomous bus line, and also due to not yet legal situation being us, allowing us to drive without an operator on board. We were running a bus 7 days a week, 5 hours a day and twice an hour on a route which was 1 kilometer long one way. We had the ability of real-time vehicle tracking. We had variable content displays for our passengers and the safety driver on board. And thanks to automatic passenger counting system, we know within this period we carried over 3,300 passengers. We also distributed paper-based questionnaires among them. And during the pilot, we had an active survey on the city's website where we were not checking not asking about the experience of being on a bus, because this was the function of the passenger questionnaire. We were actually checking the knowledge of Gdansk residents on autonomous mobility and their opinion on it. We had huge interest of media, which basically ensured us that all the efforts and all hard work throughout 2 years was worth it, and there was hardly any negative or not enthusiastic content in media and social media. We also know that the actual advertising equivalent of this media mentions both on TV, internet, newspapers and radio exceeded the cost of the autonomous bus pilot. And we know this thanks to media monitoring platform. This is actually a funny graphic that I wanted to show because we expected a lot from a company that provided us with a bus and basically with the whole logistics of the pilot. We were expecting more than it's usually expected of companies active in the field of autonomous mobility, companies that produce autonomous minibuses and software and also services in this field. We wanted them to either provide their own experienced autonomous bus operator or train at least two bus drivers already hired by city-owned Gdansk Trams and Buses company. They decided to go for the option 2 and train our drivers. So we at the moment have the first in Poland, I believe, persons competent in being a bus operator, and they trained not 2 as we expected, but 3 persons. And through the course of training, one of our drivers took a picture of the control panel underneath the mask of the vehicle, and his 10 years old daughter has prepared this drawing for him to make it easier for her dad to know the technology and functioning of the autonomous bus. Okay, so we also expected of the company that was providing the service to implement the temporary traffic organization project that we created for the bus. The bus was driving not in a mixed traffic as we initially planned, but on a lane closed for other types of traffic. And also, I would like to quickly share some of the findings of the research we conducted through the course of the pilot. That's our routes seen from the air perspective, and just quickly showing you what were the thoughts of Gdansk residents on autonomous mobility. So basically, majority of our respondees follow information on sustainable transport, and majority of them also have heard of autonomous mobility. When we asked them if they were going to take advantage and go on autonomous bus, it turned out that quite a large number, almost 17% of them already did. And we also asked if residents think that autonomous buses would increase the attractiveness of Gdansk urban transport. And 5 is definitely yes, and over 40% expressed that they believe it would be really attractive for public transport to incorporate autonomous last mile buses. We asked residents about main advantages and drawbacks of autonomous bus. A majority appreciated its eco-friendliness, inventiveness, and possibility to enrich the offer of public transport. Some were afraid of the risk of collision, were criticizing limited range of the bus or travel time. And we also tried to compare the results of the online survey against paper-based, and it turns out that quite a large number of respondees would be willing to travel without an operator on board. And also quite a large number would be willing to admit that it's a right, suitable way of transporting children to and from school. Just some last tips. I would suggest that any municipality or transport operator who is interested in incorporating last mile autonomous buses into their PT offer needs to plan the route as soon as possible. And within the working group, plan the time frame and logistics of the pilot. There is a need to network with potential service vehicle providers. We started networking probably 3 months prior to the open tender to make potential companies in Europe aware that we will be having such a procurement in Poland and that we are expecting a really wide range of services. And I believe that if we haven't networked with them prior to announcing the tender, we wouldn't have offers to choose from. Also, for small-scale pilots, I would suggest to outsource as many services as possible, because this is a chance for you to be on a steep learning curve and to learn from experience of others. Also, to communicate your plans, actions, and changes of plans to your audience as soon as possible. We started communicating as soon as we knew we had funds secured to finance the project. Also, it's worthwhile evaluating the pilot, checking what you could have done better, and then obviously share your success story. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Is Boris from Violet here? Could you also comment your experiences?
I'm here too, yes. Hello, this is Boris Schoenfeldt from the municipality of Vejle in Denmark. So I've been mentioned in Magda's presentation and more places. And we're the city where we didn't succeed with the pilot. I'll say thank you to all the speakers for all the useful information you've given, but we have a slightly different perspective on the project, because we found that the traffic law was amended with the possibility of testing or doing a pilot of autonomous vehicles in 2017. And then we entered the project and thought we were home safe and would run a pilot. But it showed, or it happened to be, that the law was meant to be for all autonomous vehicles and not specifically this kind of autonomous vehicle, which made it complicated. So when we entered the market and tried to be in dialogue with them for running a pilot, their answer was, after a long and very labor-intensive process, their answer was that it was not flexible enough and it was not fast enough. So for shorter pilots, it would not be possible and it would not be financially viable to run a pilot. So unfortunately, it was not possible. Looking back at the whole process, I would say it would have been helpful if we could have been, as public entities, could have been in dialogue with the traffic law entity and try to solve this issue beforehand. They have now promised and is running a process about evaluating the law, but unfortunately in our case and within this project, it's too late.
Gradually can start a second part of the webinar.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction, Yari. I am Mauro Bellone. I'm a docent of robotics working at Chalmers University, and I have spent the last 10 years working on autonomous driving in different projects, including Sohjoa Baltic. So, well, let me begin by spending just a few words regarding Chalmers. Chalmers is a technical university located in the beautiful city of Gothenburg on the west coast of Sweden. Chalmers conducts research and offer education in technology and science with a final vision of a sustainable future. So, and I work specifically in the Applied Artificial Intelligence Research Group. We focus on optimization using the statistical method, cognition, intelligent control, and their application on ground vehicles. So I do believe that the technological challenge toward autonomous driving involves several fields, from control theory to artificial intelligence. And the latter has seen a growing trend as a promising technological solution, even though it is accompanied with different ethical issues and interpretability issues. So let me begin by focusing for one moment on these images. This should be familiar to all of us, regardless of country and city. All these vehicles may be fossil fuel based, they may be electric, they may be autonomous, but a traffic jam is still a traffic jam. The problem does not only concern emission, but also space, disposal, and use of territory. So many vehicles, most of them carrying only one person, just do not fit inside our highly densely populated city. So this is one of the main drivers for our Sohjoa Baltic project. So in our project, we are working toward the integration of automated electric minibuses as part of the public transportation. So we have been running pilots across the Baltic Sea area, and during the pilot, we have done research to understand all current limitations and to build the future of intelligent transportation system, in which efficiency and safety must be fundamental blocks. So, but the question is, why electrification and automation have to work side by side? Well, to be sustainable, efficiency in electrified vehicles must be increased, and automation may offer very important contributions in reducing energy consumption using precise velocity regulation, acceleration control, and traffic flow control. So let me focus for a moment on how these vehicles are made. So an electric minibus, in a simplified way, is composed of an electric motor powered by batteries, typically lithium-based batteries, as they combine efficiency with durability. Batteries must be recharged, and this can be done via plug-in cables or via magnetic coupling. Most of the vehicles in the market today can drive up to 200, 300 kilometers with a single charge, covering 90% of urban mobility need. Specifically, the minibuses that were tested in Helsinki and the other pilot cities could drive around 6 to 8, maybe 10 hours on testing routes, depending on heating or other factors, maybe the number of people on board. So this may seems not to be enough, but the charging time can go into the urban transportation planning, and this can be a point of efficiency. So now it should be clear that this seems to be environmentally sustainable, but this comes with a big cost in terms of recharging infrastructure. So the biggest concern while talking about electrified vehicles are how the energy powering the vehicles is produced and what is the efficiency of the infrastructure as a whole. So the answer to these questions depends on the cooperation between vehicle manufacturers, public administration, and energy producers. I'm sure that it should be possible to address all these issues by strengthening the cooperation among these actors. But now, let me start with some part of the vehicle automation. And the automation inside the minibus comes with many different elements. Essentially, to automate a vehicle, we only need steering control and velocity control. Contrary to what many think, automated vehicles was already done in the early 90s. Steering robots and driverless vehicles are on test track since decades. So what is missing to see driverless vehicles on road? In one simple word, it's intelligence, because among all the blocks that we see in the picture, that part is only the vehicle control. And that is the component that drives actuator by traducing the commands coming from a trajectory following block. This block receives some information, the trajectory that is built from a decision-making algorithm and translated into the actual commands. So the decision-making is the most important part inside our vehicle, but it requires information from the surrounding via some part of perception of the context. Just think about how many situations a driver can encounter in everyday driving and how many quick decisions must be made in front of pedestrians, other vehicles, or other situations. Well, finally, it is also possible to have communication in a base station, and this can be used to help autonomous vehicles to handle situations in which the human supervision is required, meaning that the role of the driver could be lifted from driving to vehicle supervision in a control room. But how artificial intelligence can really help to solve this task? Artificial intelligence mainly goes into the context perception, so meaning that the vehicle must sense, perceive, and understand all the surrounding environment. So in a way, perception is how we understand something using our sensing. So we intrinsically measure what is happening in our environment. So how can a machine understand this picture, for example, in which there is a child following a ball? This can lead to a potential danger for both, but the machine should make sense of this situation rather than only recognizing the object, because the ball is a different object than the child. So which physical quantity our brain measure, and how do we understand such a situation? Well, the way artificial intelligence currently does is to build a specific relation between the information, each example that we get, and a specific action. So we need to build this type of relation, adding many examples, and some of them may be clear and some of them may be a little bit unclear. So how should artificial intelligence address situations in which the outcome may be uncertain? So, well, this is the big doubt about artificial intelligence, and this is also the reason why we have ethical issues with artificial intelligence. But now I would like to start concluding my presentation, giving you my tips. And the tip 0 would be don't be afraid of artificial intelligence. It will not take over. I mean, artificial intelligence can be seen as a way of fitting information with action. Many companies can generate profit having big quantities of data, but this does not mean that robots will take over the world. So the second is that automation will give people time, and we should make the best of the time that automation will give us. So we will no longer need to focus on hours of driving from home to work, but better to have time for reading, studying, and acquiring new skills. So, and the last one is that the technological development requires time, but it will make our life better. So we should not rush to get into the market, but rather to have time to test the technology and make it safe. An anecdote that comes to my mind is when Edison and Tesla were promoting electricity and electric lighting for everybody, and there was a lot of debate whether electricity was safe or not, as it could be used to kill and it could accidentally generate shock. But by now, it should be clear that it is unthinkable to live in a world without electricity. And I strongly believe that in the future, it will be unthinkable to live in a world without automation and intelligence. So, thank you.
Okay, hi, I'm Vibeke Holland, and I am working in Ruter in a department who is responsible for developing and testing new mobility service. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you for the invitation. I will talk about the background why Ruter working with the autonomous vehicle in this early stage, and I will tell short about what we have done so far and what we are going to do in the future. But first of all, Ruter, I can't switch the. How can I get to the next?
Just click the.
Do you see the same? Do you see the same? I can't switch the sides. Okay, now.
There you
go. Oh, it's coming. Ruter is the public transport authority in Oslo and Akershus. They are serving a quarter of the population in Norway. And last year, Ruter had 60 million more boardings than the year before. So we have a growth. So short, the key goal set by the city government in Oslo is that all growth in transporting people must be covered by public transport, cycling and walking, and 20% reduce of car usage in Oslo. We shall give our customer in Oslo and Akershus the opportunity to travel with public transport in an environmentally friendly manner with zero emission. Ruter's ambition is to quickly implement the solution that we believe are the best in long term. If we see the vision for Ruter is sustainable freedom to move around. If we are going to deliver on the vision, we must listen to the customer, we have to learn, we have to fail, and we have to test so we can develop new products and services. Ruter believes that shared autonomous mobility will play an important part of the future transportation system. We want to be in front of the development to learn and how to use the technology. If the customer feels that the mobility service we offer can not compete with the private car, they will not choose us. This is the big picture on key drivers for change. There are ongoing changes in the landscape of public transport. The public transport of the future is electric, it is autonomous, connected and shared. The business Ruter is in needs to be redefined. Ruter no longer sees itself as being in the transport business. we are in the business of delivering mobility service. People have a need to get from A to B. If we understand these needs and understand the market potential for their services, we can work with and find solutions that meet them. If they feel that the mobility service we offer cannot compete with the private car, they will not choose us. So in Oslo, we have done the same as in Lisbon and Helsinki. We have the Oslo study. The purpose of the Oslo study is to investigate the future where autonomous vehicles and mass-based car sharing have replaced private car ownership. The report investigates some potential consequence of such a future for the Oslo region. The best case scenario from the Oslo study simulates that the shift from a private car to a fleet of shared vehicles can reduce the number of vehicles with 84 to 93%. Imagine what kind of impact that will have on the city. The Oslo study shows also the potential that shared autonomous vehicles have, but also the critical scenarios we can get if we don't do this right. You can see the best case here. We can have a traffic reduction of 14% to 31%. But if every car in the city are autonomous and we don't share it, it will be a complete traffic breakdown. So traditional public transport combined with cycling and walking will be key elements in solving the future urban mobility. And autonomous vehicles can help reaching the target. When we integrate in larger mobility system, that it can worsen the situation if we are using as cars are today. Therefore, are we trailing autonomous vehicles in Oslo and Akershus? When we started this project for I think it's 3 years ago, we made this timeline without the year. We just split it up in 4 steps. First, in step 1, we are piloting new solution and technology by learning and have experience. In the next step, we can introduce it into regular operation in limited areas. And step 3, we can scale it up. And at last one in step 4, we have made a transformation. And if you see, don't ask me about the timeline because I don't know, but if you can tell me the timeline, please let me know. So we are now in the first step, in step 1, and in this step we have defined 3 main objectives for our project. First of all, we want to introduce the technology to the customer and the market, so that both users and public transport system, as well as other road users, get experience with the autonomous vehicles. The second objective is to explore the role such vehicles can play in the public transport network, as well as what new mobility service are enabled. And the last one, and this is really important one, number 3 here, we have to prepare router as an organization and our authorities and vendors for the new technology and the new services. If we don't do that, we can't implement it. And finally, a short about our trials. The goal is to make the transport easier, more sustainable, and more cost efficient by using autonomous vehicles. But first, we must make that the autonomous vehicles are competitive tools, and yet they are not really that. We have 4 different trials. 1 is completed, 1 is ongoing, and 2 are under planning. Every single pilot is in mixed and complex traffic situation. The first pilot was in the city center near the harbor in Oslo. It was a very busy area in mixed traffic and are lots of bicyclists and tourists. In the start, we had 2 shuttles, and in the end, we had 4 shuttles in this area with a frequency on 10 minutes. The second, Ormøya-Malmøya, this is still going on, and here we had 3 Navia shuttles. This is in a residential area with narrow roads, 2 bridges, and it's very close to the ocean. It is only 10 minutes outside the city center of Oslo. The service here will come in addition to the 12-meter bus with a low frequency. We want to learn about how this service will be used and if they will use it instead of the private cars. In this area, almost every family has 2 cars. The third one, Kongens gate, will start in end of June, and we will have focus on the traffic lights and the communication between the shuttles and the traffic lights. The 4th trials is in Ski. And for this pilot, we have some new learning points, and we are testing quite new vehicles and new technology. We have normal Toyota vehicles, and we have technology from Sensible 4. We want to move towards, we want to have a seamless operation in 50 zone. So these vehicles are going to drive faster than 18 kilometers per hour, like the ISMI. We are trialing improving stability in all weather conditions. When it's raining, it has to drive as well. And we are going for an on-demand functionality and permanent operation. This pilot will be for approximately 2 years. In Ruter, we believe in collaboration, and I think we will reach the target faster. We have a close cooperation with the Norwegian Public Roads Administration and the city environment in Oslo, and all the other partners you see on this slide. But we take one step and learn something new every day. But the ambition is still that we, as soon as possible, that we have a bigger fleet of autonomous vehicles. Thank you for listening.
We are moving forward, and next, Taina Haapamäki from Flow will tell us if our cities are ready for the future.
So, yeah, I think probably I won't tell you if your city is ready, but you can tell me after. But happy to be here today, and the question indeed is your city ready? So, my name is Taina Haapamäki. I come from a company, Flow. It's an independent consultancy in Helsinki, and we are part of the Sohjoa Baltic consortium on the transport system issues and the role of robot buses in transport systems. Today, the problems that we see are actually the solutions from yesterday. We see emissions, we see congestion, and they derived from the solutions we did yesterday. The key in city planning is to prevent major future problems from happening, and that is also to understand the nature of transport systems and the role of autonomous vehicles in the systems. In transport systems, it's all about densities. So in low density areas, we need something with low costs. We need the light modes. In higher densities, we need more heavy modes, and there we need more space efficiency because there are a lot of different uses for the space there. So to conclude, it is very hard to provide high availability for low density areas with the mass transit, but it is also very hard to provide high availability for high density areas with light modes because they take up so much space. So then we need to look what automation has to offer for different modes. So if we first look at the light modes, what we see is automation can provide lower costs. It can take off the driver from the vehicles. Maybe the driver can do some other assistant, or at the end, maybe he or she doesn't need to be there at all. In heavy modes, there what automation can provide is more accurate control, and that can increase capacity on the existing infrastructure. In the picture, we see that different modes really have different speeds and different capacities. So when we look at cities, we really need to think about the accessibility and how we can move all the people. But automation can help in both sides. So then, what is required from the autonomous public transport in order to work in cities? First, it needs to be attractive to the passenger so that they really want to board. They need to be economically feasible so that we have a way to finance them. They need to enable services for new groups or improve the service level for existing customer. They need to be available where the users are, and very importantly, they need to be compatible with transport system. So they need to complement the existing system. They need to be space efficient so that we have the space to use for other activities as well, and they need to be environmentally sustainable. So the goal is not about being autonomous, it's about having all the features mentioned. Otherwise, they won't be appealing to the cities and people. So the other question is, what is required from the cities so that autonomous vehicles can operate there? One thing is to have the supporting public transport infrastructure. As mentioned, the autonomous buses can only serve until a certain need of capacity, and after that there are more efficient modes and trunk lines and mass rapid transit. Secondly, we really need to have an understanding on the mobility needs and demands. Otherwise, we can only do reactive solutions. We cannot be proactive without then testing all our solutions. So now there are a lot of ways to also forecast the demand and to know it beforehand. We certainly need to have a vision and means to develop the city, because that's the only way we know which direction to go to. Also, it is really important to have means of funding and land value capture, because if we don't know how to get the money created back to the system, then it is really hard for us to fund the transportation. There are, for example, ways to do the land value capture so that when the value of the land goes up, we can have the money back to the transport system. One other thing to remember is that our mode choices are not independent. They are actually interdependent. So changing the mode for a single trip per day can add new possibilities for the whole day. If we make one trip with a car, we will be likely to use it for all other trips as well, because we probably parked the car somewhere and we need to take it back. With autonomous non-private vehicles, we allow more asymmetry on our daily travel chains. So, yes, the question is, what is the road ahead? We think that the adaptation of autonomous vehicles will happen gradually. The more isolated the environment is, the easier it is to operate autonomously. Studies also show that on-demand services are the most challenging, but also they have the highest payout. So we think that we will first need to have pilots, then we will be able to operate on closed areas such as hospitals and campuses, then selected residential areas. After that, maybe feeders for trunk lines, and after that, we may be able to have the widely available on-demand services. The thing to remember is that the autonomous vehicles are not self-organizing. They may be self-driving, but we are the ones to organize the city. Thank you very much.